All right, Lynn, I'm excited to chat with you about your mastermind experience. And this is audio only, by the way. I
Okay.
didn't tell you that before, but even though we can see each other, it's just going to be audio. So would you first tell me why you joined the mastermind? What was it, like 2 years ago now? Something
I
like
think
that?
it was 2 years ago. Yep. So I've been listening to your podcast for a while. And about 2 years ago, I was feeling like I was in a little bit of a rut and needed somebody outside of my district to kind of talk through things and give me a different perspective. And I thought the mastermind would be a good place to try that. I've always really valued getting outside my bubble within the district and also within my Title I world. And so it's important for me to see the bigger picture. And I figured that the mastermind would be a good place to get that bigger picture and other people's experiences to help me broaden my own.
Yeah, so in the mastermind, we meet every week. We talk about concerns that are facing you, how to overcome those, what we need to do to be better. We set goals and read books together and all that kind of stuff. What was it about the mastermind that helped you the most, if you could narrow it down to just one thing?
Just one thing?
Yeah, you know me. I like to focus on just one thing. So
Yes. Okay, well, I guess that's it then. I think it's the looking small to impact big. That first time we were talking about what my goal would be for the next week, and you're like, that's a terrible goal. Keep thinking. And I was like, oh, he's gonna tell me that I need to actually really think. So I think that was probably the first clue to me that it was going to be helpful because I had to really think about something very specific. I was able to not get overwhelmed with all of the stuff that was coming up and be able to narrow my focus so that I could do something that would actually impact and make change the way I wanted to.
Yeah. It's funny. I do remember that conversation because I was a little bit hesitant because you were new to say that was a bad goal. But at the same time, I was like, man, if she makes goals like this every time, we're never going to get anywhere because, it was too big, too hard to measure, and too impossible to accomplish. And I remember thinking maybe I shouldn't say this, but then I just went with it and I did. And I remember your face in that meeting was like, oh, what? Nobody's ever told me I've had a bad goal before. And then I did. But what I really appreciated was that you took that feedback, you made a better goal, and then you showed over the course of these last 2 years that you knew how to set good goals and that you set them and that you made them small enough that you could actually accomplish them and they would lead to bigger impacts. What were some of the impacts in your own leadership that you saw because of the mastermind?
So I think one of the goals that I had was to start journaling, and that actually impacted my leadership because by doing that, I was able to prioritize reflection every day. At the end of the day, I would sit for 10 or 15 minutes and just journal about the day and what happened, and it forced me to reflect. So that then forced me to make changes because of a lot of times I would journal about an interaction with a staff member, and it would help me think what went well with that interaction and what didn't. And if there was something I knew that didn't work or something that I needed to do better the next time, that forced me. I've always felt like I've been reflective, but that really, by writing it down, it helped me actually make the change of the reflection. It's one thing to be reflective and not do anything about it, but this really helped me do something with that reflection. So it helped me in my interaction with my staff.
Yeah, that's interesting. And where did that idea of journaling come from?
So I think that one was Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits. Yeah, that book we read
was one of my favorite books that we read. That one, because again, it was looking at small pieces of change to impact you in a bigger way. And that that every time I start feeling like I get overwhelmed, that I kind of go back to that thought of the atomic habit, the small one that it impacts the bigger. So
yeah, that's really great. And I think for me, one of the ways that impacted me was hearing you reflect on the power that journaling had. And I remember that was your focus for like 2 months or something, right?
Yeah.
And you just said, I gotta focus on journaling. You just kept working at it, and eventually you were like, okay, I'm journaling regularly and this feels good and it feels right. And I've been a big journaler in the past, and I've gotten away from that, but that has been, you've been an inspiration to me to help me start journaling as well. And my journal is really just three things that I'm grateful for, 3 things that went well, who I connected with, answering whether or not I wrote that day, because I want to be a writer and write every single day. And then finally, what could have made today better. And those things have been really powerful in my own personal reflection. And so you have inspired me to do that as well. So in the beginning, when I do the mastermind, I don't tell people they have to commit for 6 months or a year or 2 years or whatever it is. It's very open-ended. You come when you're available, you join, and then you stay for as long as you want to be. When you started, what was your expectation of how long you would do the mastermind?
So I didn't have a real set goal of I'm going to do this for 6 months to help me become a better practitioner. I really wanted it to be open-ended and stay with it, because I felt a lot of it was it helped push me. And once you get to a certain part in a certain place in your career, you don't get a mentor, you don't get somebody to kind of be your critical partner to push your thinking, and because this job is very isolating in that you don't often get time to talk to other principals, and if you do, it's in a meeting where they're kind of throwing information at you and then say go back to your building and do it. And this provided me that opportunity to have somebody help push my thinking and make me critically think about what I was doing in my own practice and what kind of things that were a challenge, and were they really a challenge, and is it okay to change the way I think about what I'm doing. And so because I found what I needed, I kind of felt like it was going to be as long as it continued to do that, or something else got in the way of me coming. But it definitely was an open-ended.
Yeah. And I think that is a really mature way to look at it, because I saw the same thing in my own professional development as a principal, where I got to a certain point and people stopped offering help,
Mm-hmm.
but I was like, wait a minute, I'm still dealing with issues that I need help with every single day. And yeah, I could do it all on my own, and I could be, probably successful, and that would be fine. But I feel like I'd be much better if I had other people around. And that's why I started the podcast, was to be able to get that help right when I needed it. And I enjoyed that so much that I thought I could also do this with other principals and help other principals at the same time. And you went through some very challenging times during the mastermind, and there were some frustrating experiences with families, with staff, with supervisors, and all that kind of stuff. And I remember one time specifically, you at the end of the call basically said, "Oh, this was so good because I came in frustrated, and I'm leaving now feeling relaxed and not as frustrated." Can you talk about how that support was beneficial? And you don't have to share any specific examples or anything, but just how that helped you reframe the challenges you were going through.
Well, I think part of it, a small part of it is, anything that any of us came to the mastermind with and said, hey, this is an issue, we all could relate to that. So it helped us feel like we're not the only ones that have that concern. But I think it was also a good way to feel like I could reframe it. It's there's, I don't have to sit and wallow and look at the problem. It was okay, so that's the problem. So what can you do to fix that problem? So it helped kind of push me whenever it was my turn to talk about what the challenge was, push me to think through, how can we have a plan of action? So what are you going to do about this? Yes, this is the problem, but what are you going to do about it? And sometimes it might have just been, yeah, that's a really bad problem. You can't really do much about it, but at least I got it off my chest and now it's gone, and I don't have to think about it anymore, or at least I could sleep that night. But most of the time it was, what's one thing that you can do to take a step in the right direction to dealing with that problem? And a lot of times, it could have been, let's talk through how you might have that challenging conversation with a staff member. What are some things that you could say that would get that person in the right frame of mind to have that challenging conversation with you? And so that was super helpful, because I would walk away with a plan of action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think what's really key there is, we did spend a little bit of time admiring problems, but then we really focused on, what are we going to do about it? And, we didn't let the problem admiration consume all of our energy, but we really focus on saying, okay, so what? So what are we going to do? And that's where I saw real growth in people is, especially when you're on the hot seat and it's your day to come up with a problem, and you say, I just have no idea what to do. And then we start talking, and then this plan materializes and becomes something that you could do, not necessarily the plan that you're going to do. But there are a lot of times where just having that idea and that plan made everything else a lot easier to deal with. Yeah. So right now, somebody is listening to this and they're saying, I've heard Jethro talk about the Mastermind for months, because I've been listening to the podcast for a long time, and I want to do it, but I'm also scared to make a commitment. I'm scared to go to jethrojones.com/mastermind and schedule an appointment and all that kind of stuff. What would your advice be to someone who's in that situation? Because you were there also before. What would your advice be?
So doing this was definitely outside my comfort zone. I'm very introverted. I don't call random people up and say, hey, let me be part of your group. But I would say, if you feel like you are kind of stuck, and if you feel like you can't get out of just admiring the problem, or you don't have anyone to push you critically to think, that critical partner, then you need to just take that jump, because it will provide you opportunities to actually take action, to do your reflection, but also take action on that reflection. It will help you realize that you do have the answer to the problem. Sometimes you just need to say to the group, I don't have the answer. And then as you work it out, you actually do. And even if that plan that you walk away with at the end of that hour mastermind isn't one that you actually do the next day, it gives you a place to start with. And almost all of the problems that I had that I talked through, I was able to accomplish, maybe not immediately, but it put me on the journey to fix that issue, especially with the hard, challenging conversations with staff. So I think I think that people, if you're in that spot where you're just not sure what to do, and you need a group of people to help you work through it, then you just need to kind of take the leap and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate that. And it can be scary sharing your problems with other people, especially when you're the principal and you're supposed to have all the answers, right? And everybody's looking to you. Yep. But as you mentioned, it can be real lonely, especially if you don't have those critical thought partners. I think for me, the biggest benefit is really that you have a bunch of people who, there's no political nature to anything we're doing. We're all just there to help the other people be successful. And so, if you are contemplating it, I do encourage you to check it out. Just go to jethrojones.com/mastermind and, fill out the application. Let's get in touch and find a way to make it work. And Lynn, I just want to say thank you for sharing your experience here on on this recording. And any final words before we sign off?
Just that I am happy to talk with you, and it's been a really great experience. And when I was thinking about it, I couldn't believe that it's been 2 years, because it feels like it feels like it's only been a little while, but it also feels like I've known you forever. So it's been a very, very beneficial, not only to my professional career, but just personally, it's been a great experience.